welcome everyone. My name is Kelly Clardy. I am the grants manager at Maddie's Fund, and we are excited to be hosting this fourth and final huddle for the Return to Home Challenge. So starting on Saturday, October 1st, we're encouraging animal shelters and rescue organizations who handle lost, stray, at-large dogs and cats to elevate return to home by creating a culture of return to home within your organization and your community. We are proud to say that we have close to 200 organizations signed up to participate, along with 17 national organizations as partners. We've got $300,000 in grants that we'll be awarding, thanks to Maddie's Fund, Michelson Found Animals Foundation, and Petco Love. And we can't wait to see what you all do. So for today's huddle, we've got 20 minutes of presentation time, followed by 30 minutes of live Q&A. And I've got just a couple of housekeeping items to go over before we get started. So everybody is muted so that we can hear our speakers. And once their presentations have concluded, we will open up the Q&A session. So there are two ways that you can ask questions, either by raising your hand or by typing in the chat area. So you can raise your hand using the participants, where it says participants in the bottom of your screen. If you click on that, you get a little hand icon. That's our preferred method for Q&A because it allows us to be able to talk with you and clarify your question if we need more information. But if you would rather just type your question in the chat, that is okay too. We'll be reading those and you'll get your question answered regardless. So finally, we are recording this session. It will be posted to our Return to Home Challenge group on Maddie's Pet Forum, as well as the webpage, should you wish to view it again or share it with a friend. All right, so today we will be talking about two of the menu items. One, regulations and laws encourage return to home. And the second is other, meaning anything else that we haven't covered thus far in the huddles. So we've got two speakers for you today. We've got Glenda Davis at Animal Rez-Q Inc. and Mike Wheeler from Cabot Animal Support Services. Let me read you their short bios and then we will get started. So Glenda Davis, Navajo women of the Water's Edge clan, was born for the Salt people and resides in Sawmill, Arizona, Navajo Nation. Presently, she is the founder and president of Animal Rez-Q Inc. Glenda is retired with 33 years of services with the Navajo Nation, 10 years as large animal vet tech, 20 years as the program director of veterinary and livestock program, and 3 years as the program director with Navajo Animal Control Program. Mike Wheeler, who's going to speak after Glenda gives her presentation, is the director of community services for Cabot, Arkansas. Over the last 13 years, Mike has been dedicated to animal welfare and public safety while reducing euthanasia and promoting responsible pet ownership in Cabot, Arkansas. In 2020, his desire to help people and animals brought about 23 community programs that focus on improving the lives of every person and pet in his community through strengthening the human-animal bond and keeping families together. This philosophy has reduced his annual intake to 1,035 animals in 2021 compared to 3,357 animals in 2019. Mike's philosophy is one that is based on continued learning in an ever-changing world, as well as learning daily from human and animal welfare leaders across the country. Mike has completed his bachelor's degrees in criminal justice and business administration and a master's degree in public administration. All right, Glenda, I will turn this over to you. Go ahead and take it away.
All right, excellent to be here. Welcome, everyone. We will be talking about laws and regulations, and I'm talking to you about the Navajo Nation. If you can start the slides, Brittany, that would be wonderful. So to introduce myself from Navajo Nation, as a Native woman, we express our clans. So I'm Tapaha, born for Ashihe, Kiaani Dashache, Todachini Dashanella, and those are just my 4 clans, so that if I have any relatives on the phone, on the call or the huddle here, that they'll know how they're related to me. So next slide. So I wanted to give a little bit of information about the Navajo Nation. We are about the size of West Virginia, 27,000 square miles. We have 400,000 enrolled tribal members now with our tribe. And since COVID, a lot of our people have come home. So presently we have about 183,000 people that live on the reservation. Regretfully, we have a very high unemployment rate. It's 48.5%. And the average household income is about $20,000. So I wanted to kind of bring this to the pet world. So if we estimate that there are 47,600 number of households on the reservation, and they had 2 pets per household, we would be looking at about 95,000 pets. Next slide. So when we're talking about the Navajo Nation, we have recently amended our tribal code, and that is our animal control ordinance in 2018. It hadn't been changed in 33 years, and it took quite a monumental event, and our tribal council has to vote on it and make sure everything is approved, all T's are crossed, I's are dotted. So in resolution CJY 6418, that approved our new ordinance. And in that ordinance is the requirement for microchipping. And what was fun about this initiative, this is, if you see there in the picture, we have Legislative Kitty. Furball was our mascot. She got microchipped, vaccinated, dewormed, and was our mascot to launch our regulations for the Navajo Nation. And if you're interested, there's a copy, the link on the bottom there can bring you to our little ordinance book for the Navajo Nation. Next slide. So in that requirement for pets, the Navajo Nation, once pets are licensed, each pet gets a microchip. Last summer, we microchipped for free and gave free vaccinations and deworming, and that was to over 1,200 animals in 2 months. So we like to utilize microchips that have a lifetime registration, just because we have a lot of elders with pets, a lot of herding animals that work out there. And so when we microchip them, our elders don't have access to the internet or broadband. So we do the registration for them. And because of our huge land base, we have few animal control officers. And so we partnered with quite a few organizations to try to get the work done and get microchips in our pets. Next slide. What we're doing with our initiative for Return to Home, we've decided to work with our local chapter governments, and on the Navajo Nation, we have 110 of them. So these are like little cities with their own government, and they have their own president and staff there. So we work with them to make an agreement and partner with them to bring vaccinations through a drive-through process. Right now, COVID is still very high on the Navajo Nation. We were seriously impacted. Our tribe, our Navajo Nation president had multiple shelter-in-place mandates for our people, and so we couldn't move. The only way that entities such as Animal Rescue could provide services was to get approval from our own Department of Health. And so we continue to use a drive-through process where all the pet owners and the pets stay in their vehicles. We continue to have a facial mandate. And because of our culture, we have a lot of our, if you can see on the bottom, the mask up is made for our Navajo people, and you can see the traditional hair ties of the women and the men. And since we have a great many sheep and a lot of herding that's done on Navajo, they instead of 6 feet apart, they have 6 sheep apart. So it's really cute. So we have planned for our return to home to assist with and support our regulations and laws for Navajo Nation. We have a microchipping event planned. We are going to provide distemper combo shots, rabies, oral dewormer, and those are all made affordable from the grants that we received. And we also recently received our pet hub tags. So we're going to be distributing those to them until they're actually exhausted. So with the left poster there, that is a clustered housing site. So on Navajo Nation, we have a lot of communities that have homes that are built specifically for the youth, their use, whether that's a school district, tribal programming, the Navajo Nation employee housing, Navajo Housing Authority. You're looking at the Indian Health Service housing. So those entities, there's about 5 clustered housing areas where we try to work with their grounds people and their maintenance department to bring microchipping and vaccinations to their area. So NTCDC, which is a clustered housing site, is going to be one of our sites on October 13th. And then the other poster is 4 chapter government sites that have agreed to set aside a space to have drive-through vaccinations, so that they're going to designate an area of land where we're going to be able to provide all of the shots. And so a lot of our communication, because of COVID and the drive-through process, our education is one-on-one. We speak with the pet owners, we educate them on the health and care of their pet, the importance of microchipping, and the importance of what they should do if their pet is lost. And so that's going to be our activities for the Navajo Nation as it relates back to trying to comply with our regulations for mandatory microchipping of our pets. We also have an other return to home practice, and we coordinate with our tribal government, our Navajo Nation Office of the President and their programs, and then again working with our clustered housing sites. So I guess that's to bring in Mike and his other portion of the huddle here. And next slide. So I wanted to thank each of you and all of your assistance, and good luck to everyone and all of your thoughts and creative ideas for your area, your pets and your people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Glenda. That was incredible.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Mike. I know you've got a couple of things you want to share with us, and then we'll open it up to Q&A.
Everybody, thanks for letting me be here. Return to home is huge for us. We're a small shelter. We only have 20 large kennels, 13 small kennels, and we ran 3,300 animals a year through with a 1% euthanasia rate. So we were moving animals, but they weren't stopping. They continued to come. So this return to home is very important to our small city. As it is, I would say, countrywide. And we utilize our entire department. I'm over animal services, which has the animal shelter and animal control within that. So we utilize both animal control and the animal shelter for this. If I got time, I'll talk quick about 2 of our programs. The first one on the animal control side. Animal control officers have more contact with your citizens than any other people in your organization. So why shouldn't they be involved? Enforcement is the day of the past. We still have to enforce laws. We still have to enforce ordinances and codes. But we should be more willing to help public keep their animals unless they're doing less egregious acts. And we haven't been doing that as an industry. We just don't do that typically. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. In 2017, I picked up a couple dogs outside of a residence. They'd gotten out through the fence. And so I did like all animal control officers do. I picked them up and I took them back to the shelter. Right? That's our jobs. That's what we do. But what happened was they couldn't afford to come get the dogs. The gentleman's name was Maurice. He couldn't afford to come get the dogs. I wrote him citations for his dogs running loose. He couldn't afford the impound fees, so I also wrote him citations for failure to reclaim his animal. His dogs got out of the fence. This keeps going deeper and deeper when you look at it. He was a truck driver, couldn't afford the impound fees to get his dogs, so now I have his dogs. I wrote him citations for failure to reclaim. I wrote him citations for no city license, for dogs running at large. He couldn't afford them. I have the dog. I still have to get it adopted. He didn't show up for his court date. They suspended his driver's license. Being a truck driver, he immediately lost his job. And I don't know what happened to Maurice. I don't. I wish I did, because, I caused a lot of grief on his family. When really all I needed to do was put him back in the fence and wire together the fence without bringing him into the shelter and accruing all these fees and everything. But what did I do? I mean, I didn't. So I don't know what happened to Maurice, but I have to keep thinking that, I've caused them financial grief. They moved out of the house as a rental property. I don't know where they went. What kind of damage did I do to their children because the children can get their dog back? And what kind of damage did I do to the industry when now their daughter has to hate animal control officers because they took their dog? So now we have what we call Fences for Fido program. My officers carry a fence repair kit with them in their vehicles. If we had to buy everything, it would probably would have been $35 or $40 for the kit. Has a hammer, a bag, baling wire. And if you don't know what baling wire is, email me. It's a country thing. So a pair of wire pliers and some nails. $35, $40 would take care of that. But we got it all donated. Home Depot graciously donated us the bags and everything for all of our trucks. So now my officers, if they find an animal out, and it's happened on numerous occasions, they find an animal out, just put the animal back in the fence. They can do a quick wire on the fence or nail a picket back up, put a door tag on the front door saying, we were out here by your house, your dogs got out, we put them back in your backyard. We did a temporary fix on your fence. Please contact us to let us make sure everything's okay. And that's it. So we're now returning them home in the field. It saves a lot of time, saves staff time, saves money. And my officers are happier. They've got less work to do when they get back to the shelter. Shelter staff is what we do, and we've got families staying together. What we find is that when we keep someone's animal because they can't afford to pick it up or a pet deposit or whatever, we get their animal in. Within 3 months, they're getting another animal. So why wouldn't we just let them have their animal back? I mean, what are we doing as a society that we're keeping animals away from people? And so we were just continually having people bring more animals into our city to replace the animals they couldn't afford to get back from us. So on the animal control side, that's what we've done. That's one of the many programs we've done. But that one is personal because officers are physically doing something out of their way to assist the public. And it's worked out real well for us. On the other side, on the shelter side, one of our biggest programs we've had is what we call our First 48. And this is where we're empowering the entire community to help us get the animals back. And this one has been amazing for us. All we do when someone calls us with a stray animal is we ask them to hold on to the animal for 48 hours. 48 hours is nothing. I can do anything for 48. I could diet for 48 hours. 72 gets a little much for me. So people are, well, here's some of the results. In 2000, and it's all how you ask. Just remember, these are compassionate people. These are people who took the time to stop on their busy day, going to work, going to the grocery store, picking up children from school, whatever they're doing, to pick up this animal and call you. How many other vehicles just drove right on by? How many other people saw this dog and they did nothing? But this person was compassionate enough to stop. So we play on that compassion. And we just ask them if they would be willing to help. My average length of stay for an owner reclaimed is 17 days in my shelter. So if dog comes into my shelter, 17 days is the average length of stay. So if they will go back within 48 hours, and we have data that says it does, animals are found usually within a block or two of their house. So we can, if you go to our website, cabotanimalsportservices.com, you will see we have a step-by-step instructions for the public to help you get the animals back. Printing off flyers, where to post pictures, everything. We take all the information. And people, they're doing it. And animals are going home. And remember, I said 17% was our return to home rate. If on the first 48, we had over 65% in 2021 that went home. So if you'll hold on to 48 hours, do the marketing we ask, and we'll provide you food, crates, whatever you need, then that animal has a 65% chance of going home. If you bring it in to us, only 17% chance. That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And we say, well, we always get the comments, and my staff gives me the comments too. Well, they didn't want to hold on to it. Well, did you make it sound like it was a chore? Or did you go ahead and say, hey, this is what happens. If it comes in, 17% chance of going home. If you keep it and you help market it, then 65% chance of going home. Can you hold on for it to 2 days? Can I set you an appointment for this day at this time for you to bring it back in? And that's important because you're giving people an out. I hear these programs all over the country, and they say, well, we ask them to hold on to the animal. Yes, you ask them to, but for how long? Oh, until we have space, or and just to help find the owner. Give them an out. Our shelter, our animal controllers don't pick up strays after hours on Friday till Monday morning. That's the way ours is set up. We're a small organization, so I know somebody can hold on for 2 days, and they agree to it. But here's some of our numbers from 2021, and I've got whole scripts and I say scripts. I don't like the word scripts, but talking points. So if you want those, get with me. I'll be more than happy to give them to you. They go through every scenario as far as if they say this, what do you say? But in 2021, we had 594 people participate in the program. We only had 177 that wouldn't participate. That's good for me. Less animals in, the less we have to deal with. And I say wouldn't participate. If they're aggressive, if they're injured, we bring them on in. Okay. We'll bring them on in. We'll take care of them, everything. This is only if they feel comfortable. But 594 participated. Of those, 387 went home. We had 186 of them brought to the shelter. But that's 387 animals that I didn't have to bring into my shelter just from that one program. I know most shelters that are on here and nationwide would love. Now, some people have 50,000 a year intakes. But for my organization, if I have 350 or more animals not come in, that's a big deal. Think of all my staff time I've saved. They would say they don't have any time, but that's okay. I saved it. I know I did. And, always worry about, well, what happens to the other animals? Well, we had 11 that were given away. So 11 found new homes. All we would do then was see if we can find out who they'll give them to and maybe get them in for a spay and neuter, microchip, things of that nature. We had 6 that actually kept the animal. And, those are the little fluffies that happens. And then we had only 4 that didn't respond to me when I contacted them. Now, as the director, 2021, I called everybody. It was my job on Sunday afternoons to follow up on this program. I don't do that this year. Hoping my staff is doing it adequately, but we'll see. But that's how I got my numbers. But the programs work for us. And I will share my email here in the chat. But anybody needs anything on it, questions, anything, scripts, everything, I'm more happy to share it with you. And I mean, that's it. I could talk all day, but I will leave it for questions if anybody has any.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. Yeah, we've gotten several requests for your scripts and your talking points. We do have the Return to Home Challenge group in Maddie's Pet Forum. So if you want to, you can drop those in or post them rather in the group on Maddie's Pet Forum. That would be amazing.
I'll do that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so we've got plenty of time here for Q&A, and look at that, right on cue. Andrew, I'm not going to try to pronounce your last name, but Andrew, you've got your hand up. Go ahead and unmute and ask your question. All right, Andrew S. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you're talking. Maybe you can't unmute. If you can put your question in the chat. And in the meantime, if anybody else has questions, go ahead and raise your hand or pop the...
Sorry about that. I was trying to use text to speech.
Oh.
The question is, how do you handle it when the finder of an animal for First 48 is not communicating with the actual owner of the animal, like 6 to 8 hours at a time?
Well, I don't know if we've had that issue. We have some that are delayed because they're communicating via email or text or through social media. But we've not had anybody not communicate. What we have to make sure everybody understands there is they're holding the animals for us. Okay, they're holding them for the public, but these animals don't belong to them. If they would like to adopt them at the end of that, then we can get that process started. But I can't say as we've had any issues where I was contacted and said I can't get a hold of the owner, or the owner saying they can't get a hold of the person who has the animal. And if it was to happen, I just send my officers over to their house and see if we couldn't make contact that way.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike. Great question, Andrew. All right. Well, I have a question for Glenda. I know there are a lot of folks in this challenge who participated in our last Return to Home Challenge, the No Place Like Home Challenge. And I know there are a lot who are new to, who didn't participate last time. And Glenda, I know you and Animal Rez-Q Inc. Got a lot of momentum in the last challenge to create this culture of return to home. So I'm wondering if you can talk about that for a minute, how that participating in that last challenge really spurred you, into all the return to home programs you have now.
Awesome. So last year with the No Place Like Home Challenge, we actually had the support of our Navajo Nation president and the Office of the First Lady. So we had a huge proclamation for our entire nation, and that was to bring together our people, to have them microchipped, to get animals vaccinated, dewormed. We added the confinement issue because we have so many roaming dogs on our reservation. And so with that launch, it just snowballed. We the office of the president and the first lady, they paid for all of the media. So we have our own tribal paper, the Navajo Times. They paid for that. They also paid for some bilingual radio announcements in the Navajo language and in English. So we had those strategically placed throughout the reservation because we're so huge. So we use about 3 major radio stations to make sure the word gets out. And then we partnered with the veterinary and livestock program, with the Navajo Nation and the animal control department. And so everyone was geared up to give microchips and all of the shots and get all of those done in the 2021. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds like you just created such an excitement for it that it was an infectious excitement, which is great. Yeah. All right. And Kim White, you got a question in the chat. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Sorry about that. I'm a little under the weather. I was just curious. I loved, Glenda, that you were able to do dewormers as well as microchips. You were able to do vaccines. Was that initial funding from another challenge or a previous Return to Home challenge? How did you afford that initially?
So we applied for the Petco Love. And so we have the free distemper combos for dogs and cats. So we're going to implement that in our October events. We also received a intake diversion fund from Petco Love. And so that purchased all of the microchips. So we're trying to, for as long as the microchips last, we're going to go ahead and utilize them. And then the other supplies, the dewormer, we had supporters, we had individuals that designated some donations specifically for our vaccine program. And so those are just going to be funneled through. And then toward the end, I think it was the second huddle, we had the pet hub, and they had the free tags to be distributed. So we asked for some, and we did get those in the mail, and they just came this week. So we had to mend and change up our posters to include them. And so that's how we were able to pull together. And with animal rescue, we try to keep our fees very, very low. So for a microchip, the distemper combo, a rabies vaccination and certificate, oral dewormer, and a microchip, we only charged $50 originally. But with the support of Maddie's Fund and Petco Love, we and Pet Hub were doing a 50% discount. So those are, the whole package is $25.
That's incredible. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for your question, Kim. Yeah. So I have a question for both of you, actually, Glenda and Mike. We know in creating this culture of return to home, many folks are very excited, very easy to get on board, with returning animals to their homes. We also know there are folks who who may be more traditional, and I'm curious how either Glenda in working with your government and Mike with your ACOs and your staff, kind of how you were able to get folks who might have a more traditional mindset, on board with these return to home policies.
You want to go first, Mike?
Sure, I'll go first. First things first, in Cabot, Arkansas, we put together a new program. We don't announce it. We don't put it out on Facebook or any social media. We just implement it. I found that when we implement it, then we have a chance to talk to citizens face to face, one citizen at a time. Whereas if we posted things out on Facebook or social media or anything of that nature, then we're immediately bombarded because people don't understand the program. So So we don't draw that negativity in from the start. And then it is a one person at a time interaction. And the people who are calling us are people who care, people who pick up the animals, people who care. So it's easy to, when somebody cares about the animals, it's easy to explain things, and we give them data. Data is key. When I say that only 17% of those that enter my front doors go home, and yet if you hold on to it 48 hours, 65% will go home. Everybody wants to be the hero. They're picking them up because they care. So it's an easy sell at that point. And if they don't want to, no, not a big deal. Bring it on in. And that's the difference. We're never turning away service. We're never turning away a citizen. If they don't feel comfortable in any of our programs, then come on in. We're not here to say we're not going to do this. We're going to do everything because that's what we do. But if you want to help us, this is how we do it. But we don't make big announcements at the start. Now, will I give an annual presentation or semi-annual presentation to City Council and explain all this to them? Yes, but by then I've got 3-6 months or a year worth of data that shows it's working. And it's working so well that you can go, we all have neighborhood groups and social media, but you can go to those groups and you can see that when they find an animal, somebody finds an animal, say, hey, I found this animal. One person will say, oh, take it to the shelter. And then you'll have 2, 3, 4, 5 more that say, no, hold on to it for a couple of days. And if you don't find the owner, then go to the shelter or go to their website and see this. So we know the culture is changing after just a year of doing it. So, but no big announcements.
Nice. So with the Navajo Nation, it's very difficult to change the culture with as it pertains to animal control and the pets. Presently on the Navajo Nation, they only have 5 ACOs. And so their work is primarily human bite cases, livestock damage. Just within the last 6 years, we had two youth that were mauled. And so a lot of their focus are citations and impoundment. And so their resources that they need to grow and expand we need to have more officers. We need to have leadership change. And so since I left the Navajo Nation, retired from the animal control program, that was my last site that I worked for the Navajo tribe. It was very difficult. It was very, very hard to come from the veterinary and livestock world where you save animals and do all you can and then come to animal control. And the reason I went there was because they needed a lot of help. They had codes that were 34 years old. And so that was one of the first things we did was we changed the code. And we also had shelters that were built back in the 1950s. And so you mentioned 20 kennels. At the most we have some shelters have 7 and some have 20. And so their capacity is very, very small. And so changing a lot of that infrastructure and trying to build the officers at that time, it was real challenging. And so now I offered to gain their support, and they had a leadership change again. So they're not on board with return to home this year in 2022. And that's disheartening to me because I'm trying to do what I can to help the pet owner. And so it can be challenging.
Well, thanks for pushing through, Glenda. We appreciate it. We know there's challenges. We appreciate you keeping on. You're doing such great work. All right, we have a question from Kim Freeman, who put her question in the chat. But Kim, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, hi. I wondered if Glenda and Mike could talk a little about any specific programs they might have going for cats, RTH on cats, and what might have worked.
So I can only speak for animal rescue. So we pretty much take care of dogs and cats, and it's pretty much the wellness side. We do programs for adoption of puppies off the nation, and we have a program where we have 100% Navajo Nation res dog breed puppies, and it's really cool. But those are puppy oopses in a family where they are they take care of them and they're rehomed. But for cats, no, we don't. We just take care of them as they come for services.
Well, in Cabot, Arkansas, we think every cat is owned by somebody or themselves. That's just, they're cats. You either belong to them or they're their own. It's just the way it works. So this is where we have these sheltering officers working together again. Every cat that we've brought in as a stray is given surgery, microchipped, ear tipped, vaccinated, and my officers take it right back to the street it was found, middle of the day, in their truck, in their uniform, and turn it loose. Look, cats have been living a long time outside, folks. And that cat is healthy and happy. Now, if it's sick, we take care of it and then we release it. But if that cat is healthy and happy and got 8 to 25 houses feeding it, who am I to argue? We're just going to make sure it's not breeding anymore. It's microchipped to the street. So if we pick it up again 5 streets over, we know right back where we're going to put it. And that's the way it is in Cabot, Arkansas. We don't have a holding period for cats anymore. We took that out of the ordinance a year and a half ago. That's what we do. They come from outside. They belong outside. We didn't put them inside until the 70s anyway. Who am I to tell cats that they don't belong out there?
Cool.
So they all go home, every one of them. The only cats we have in our system are kittens that were abandoned and not old enough to be released, or owner surrendered cats. That's it.
That's great. Thanks so much, Kim, for your question. All right, well, I'd love to hear, I know both of y'all talked a little bit about some data and some numbers, so I'd love to hear just real quick how, how you're collecting your data, how that, has really supported your return to home programs. If y'all could talk a little bit about that.
Sure, I'll go ahead. We use Shelter Love. It's, our community programming is our hardest to collect data on. It's just shelter softwares haven't caught up with what we're trying to do across this country. And we still have a lot of Excel spreadsheets. I mean, that whole 2021 first 48 was me in an Excel spreadsheet on a laptop every Sunday. So that's the way it is. So one day they'll get there, but it has definitely come a long ways, but still has a long ways to go. We still have a lot of Excel spreadsheets.
Great. I think we all have a love-hate relationship with Excel. So.
Same with animal rescue. We use a lot of Excel spreadsheets, but I did just recently received a tip, and we did sign up, and within the last few days with Animals First. And so we looked at all kinds of software, and we're a small nonprofit. Our numbers are not that huge, and we're growing. So I didn't want to spend quite a chunk of money on software. And we're not a shelter, we're not a vet clinic, but we provide community services directly into the communities. And we needed a way to monitor that and to get an idea of if we have any repeat owners that are getting their animals vaccinated and dewormed. We also had an incident where At one time, we were having the owners register their microchip. Well, we learned that they don't register them. We got a call from Grants, New Mexico. That's about an hour and a half away from where we are. And they called us because it was our chip and it was never registered. And it was very disheartening to us. So I did ask Gina. I asked Gina for her support and what her recommendation was, because I looked into lots of software and it just didn't have what we needed and the expense was too great. So we signed up with Animals First.
Great. Glad that's able to help you. Michelle Russillo has a question. Michelle, would you like to unmute and ask your question real quick?
Sure. You were close. Rosillo. You're pretty close.
Oh, great.
So my question is, what specific type of data? So for us data nerds, tell me the name of the data or what you're calling it. I know you're not going to give me the specific way you're doing it, but I'm curious of the categories. So as I enter into a more vigorous return to home program this week's, and mostly starting October 1st, I want to look at what doesn't Shelter Love do, because I use that software, and what type of Excel sheet should I be creating? Okay. Right on Garden Grove Boulevard.
Well, Shelter Love is a far cry from where I was with Pet Point. So the question is not on the data that we input, it's the attributes we assign to it and how we can pull that data out for the first 48. I'm collecting data such as, from the first phone call they come in. Did they go on to first 48? Did they not go on? What reasons did they not want to go into the first 48 program? And then we're collecting, all kinds of data. Obviously, we're running out of time here. We feel free to contact me. We can go more in depth on that. But it's more of, how do I gather all the data back? How many days was it? Was it at this person's house? Where did it go from there? All of these that we haven't quite got the attributes and everything figured out yet in order to track it. We're doing our best and we've got a workaround. I just don't like workarounds. That's all. Workarounds means that if one of my employees leaves, I've got to train another person to work around.
So should I add some information on data? So for animal rescue, we just use the spreadsheets, and our data is pretty much the owner, the pet, the sex of the pet, and what services they got. We no longer track the address and the city, because a lot of our Navajo people, they live in extended family areas and they share PO boxes, and many times they get their PO box at where they work, so that's not where they live. So we are trying to, with the Animals First, to go ahead and have to build our data to track actually the community that they're coming from, and then go from there. So it's going to be a new adventure. I can't wait to start.
All right, that's awesome. So if you asked a question in the chat that we did not get to, my apologies. Be sure to post it in the Maddie's Pet Forum Challenge group, where Mike and Glenda will be available to answer your questions. And Mike will be posting his talking points. Glenda, we would love your presentation there too. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Again, this is the last huddle for this challenge. The challenge starts on Saturday, and we cannot wait to see what you're doing. Hope everyone has a great day, and we will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
Good luck.